"This is my boyfriend," Eliza Harrington announced, linking her arm through mine as she introduced me to her father. The cold shock in his eyes matched the ice in my veins. I'd known Eliza for exactly 47 minutes, and now I was apparently dating the daughter of one of the wealthiest men in the country. The security team tensed, her father's expression darkened, and in that moment, I realized my ordinary life had just become extraordinarily complicated. What I didn't know then was how that single lie would change everything, for both of us. If you're already wondering how this unlikely scenario unfolds and whether a fake relationship between a billionaire's daughter and an average guy could ever become something real, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. This story of unexpected connections and discovering what truly matters will take you on an emotional journey you won't want to miss. My name is Noah Chen, and until that fateful Tuesday afternoon, I was just a 26-year-old graphic designer with student loans, a cramped apartment, and dreams that always seemed just out of reach. I was sitting in Westside Coffee, my unofficial office, whenever my actual shared workspace became too noisy, when the door chimed and she walked in. Even if I hadn't recognized her from occasional tabloid photos, I would have known she was someone important. It wasn't just her clothes, though the casual elegance of her cream sweater and tailored pants probably cost more than my monthly rent. It was the way she carried herself, with the particular confidence of someone who had never worried about money a day in her life. Eliza Harrington, only daughter of tech mogul and venture capitalist James Harrington, whose net worth fluctuated somewhere north of $11 billion. She was 24, Stanford educated, and according to the gossip sites I definitely didn't read, recently appointed to the board of her father's charitable foundation. I wouldn't have noticed her except that the cafe was unusually crowded, and after getting her drink, she scanned the room with increasing frustration before approaching my table. "Mind if I share?" she asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. "I just need to answer some emails before my next meeting." I nodded, clearing space for her laptop. "Be my guest." She smiled, a quick, professional thing that didn't reach her eyes, and sat down. For 20 minutes, we worked in silence, two strangers sharing a table and nothing else. I was deep in the zone, redesigning a logo for a local bakery, when her phone rang. The change in her demeanor was immediate. Her shoulders tensed, her expression hardened, and she answered with a clipped, "Yes, Dad." I tried not to eavesdrop, but it was impossible not to hear her side of the conversation. "I told you, I'm not interested in meeting him. No, I don't care how promising his company is. I know what this is really about. You can't keep trying to set me up with every eligible bachelor with good business prospects." She ended the call abruptly, then stared at her phone as if it might bite her. When she looked up and caught me watching, I quickly averted my eyes. "Sorry about that," she said, surprising me. "No problem. Parents, right?" I offered lamely. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "My father has decided that at 24, I'm well past my expiration date for being single. He's determined to see me settled with someone suitable." "Suitable meaning rich?" I asked before I could stop myself. "Rich, ambitious, and preferably from a family he can form business alliances with," she confirmed, rolling her eyes. "Very 21st century of him." I smiled. "Sounds medieval, actually." "Exactly." She leaned forward, warming to the topic. "He's hosting this charity gala tonight, and he's invited this guy, son of some tech investor from Singapore. Dad's been not so subtly hinting that we'd make a perfect match." "And you're not interested?" "I'm not interested in being my father's pawn," she said firmly. "I want to be taken seriously for my work with the foundation, not seen as some prize to be married off for business advantages." I nodded, understanding completely. My own parents had their expectations too, though admittedly, they involved more, "When are you going to get a real job?" than, "When are you going to marry a billionaire?" "What you need," I said jokingly, "is a fake boyfriend. Someone to keep your father and his candidates at bay until he gets the message." I expected her to laugh. Instead, she stared at me with sudden intensity, her eyes widening with what I would soon recognize as her "I have an idea" expression. "That's brilliant," she said slowly. "That's absolutely brilliant." "I was kidding," I clarified quickly. "But it's perfect." She was already warming to the concept. "If I show up with someone completely unsuitable, no offense." "Some taken," I interjected, but she was on a roll. "Then my father would have to back off. At least for a while." She studied me with new interest. "What's your name?" "Noah Chen." "And what do you do, Noah Chen?" "I'm a graphic designer." Her smile widened. "Even better. Creative. Freelance. Probably making just enough to get by." "You really know how to make a guy feel special," I said dryly. She laughed, genuinely this time, and I was struck by how it transformed her face, softening the polished exterior to reveal something warmer underneath. "I'm Eliza," she said, extending her hand formally across the table. "And I'd like to hire you." "To design something?" I asked, confused. "To be my boyfriend. Just for tonight." And that's how, 7 hours later, I found myself in a borrowed tuxedo, courtesy of my roommate, who worked at a high-end hotel, walking into the grand ballroom of the Harrington Hotel, with Eliza Harrington's arm linked through mine. The plan seemed simple enough. I would accompany her to the gala, play the part of devoted boyfriend, discourage her father's matchmaking attempts, and leave with a generous, consulting fee that would cover my rent for the next 3 months. Easy money for one night of pretending. Except nothing about that night turned out to be easy. The first complication arose when we arrived at the hotel. Eliza had arranged to meet me in the lobby, where she quickly briefed me on key details I should know about her: favorite books, anything by Toni Morrison, allergies, strawberries, how we supposedly met at a gallery opening for an artist friend of mine. She was efficient, focused, and clearly accustomed to managing situations. "Remember," she said as we approached the ballroom entrance, "we've been dating for 3 months. It's serious enough that I wanted you to meet my father, but not so serious that it seems suspicious." "Got it. 3 months. Serious but not suspicious." She squeezed my arm. "And try to look a little intimidated by all this. First-time boyfriend meeting the billionaire father would be nervous." "Bold of you to assume I need to pretend to be intimidated," I muttered, taking in the opulence around us. She smiled, a quick flash of genuine amusement. "You'll be fine. Just follow my lead." I nodded, and we stepped into the ballroom, a cathedral of wealth, with crystal chandeliers, floral arrangements taller than me, and more diamonds on display than I'd seen in my entire life. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that looked too artistic to eat. A string quartet played in one corner, providing a soundtrack for the murmured conversations of people who controlled more money than some small nations. Eliza moved through the crowd with practiced ease, nodding to acquaintances, exchanging air kisses with socialites, and introducing me with a casual, "This is Noah, my boyfriend," that never failed to raise eyebrows. I smiled and shook hands and tried to remember the names of people whose net worths had too many zeros for me to comprehend. And then we saw her father. James Harrington was exactly as intimidating in person as he appeared in business magazines, tall, impeccably dressed, with silver hair and the sharp eyes of a predator. He was speaking with a group of men in similar expensive suits when he spotted his daughter. His face lit up with genuine affection, then clouded with confusion when he noticed me beside her. "Showtime," Eliza whispered, steering us toward him. "Eliza, darling," he said, kissing her cheek. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming. And miss your big night?" "Never." She turned to me with a smile that was both dazzling and completely artificial. "Dad, I'd like you to meet Noah Chen. My boyfriend." And that's when I saw it, the flash of cold shock in James Harrington's eyes as he processed this unexpected development. His security team, never far from his side, subtly tensed. The men he'd been speaking with exchanged glances. Your boyfriend, he repeated, extending his hand to me with perfect manners that did nothing to mask his assessment. How unexpected. It's an honor to meet you, sir, I said, shaking his hand and feeling like I was being scanned by some internal lie detector. Eliza has told me so much about you. Curious, as she's told me nothing about you. His smile didn't reach his eyes. How did you two meet? Eliza jumped in smoothly. At the Keller Gallery opening. Noah knows the artist. You're interested in art? James directed the question at me, clearly skeptical. I'm a graphic designer, I explained. I appreciate all forms of visual expression. A graphic designer, he repeated, as if I'd said I was a professional finger painter. How fascinating. The conversation that followed was an exercise in polite hostility, with James probing for weaknesses in our story while Eliza deflected with the skill of a professional fencer. I did my best to keep up, answering questions about my work, my background, middle-class family from Seattle, parents both teachers, and my relationship with his daughter. And what are your intentions with Eliza? He finally asked, cutting to the heart of the matter. Dad. Eliza protested. It's a fair question, he countered. You've never brought anyone to a family event before. I felt Eliza tense beside me, and in that moment, I realized this charade meant more to her than just avoiding an unwanted setup. This was about asserting her independence, about being seen as more than just the Harrington heiress. My intentions, I said carefully, are to support Eliza in whatever she wants to do. She's brilliant, passionate about her work with the foundation, and capable of making her own decisions. I'm just happy to be part of her life. Something shifted in James's expression, not approval, exactly, but reassessment. Before he could respond, we were interrupted by the arrival of a striking woman in her 50s, elegant in midnight blue. James, the Miyazakis are looking for you, she said, then turned curious eyes to me. And who is this? Mom, this is Noah, Eliza said, and I realized I was now meeting the entire Harrington family. Noah, my mother, Victoria Harrington. Victoria's surprise was less guarded than her husband's. Noah? I wasn't aware Eliza was seeing anyone. It's relatively new, Eliza explained, squeezing my arm. But special. Victoria studied me with interest. Well, any friend of Eliza's is welcome. Perhaps you'll save her a dance later? He will, Eliza answered for me. But first, I want to introduce him to some of the foundation team. She steered me away from her parents, maintaining her smile until we were safely across the ballroom. That went well, I offered. My father is already having you investigated, she said under her breath, still smiling for the benefit of onlookers. Standard procedure for anyone who gets close to me. Wait, what? I nearly stumbled. Investigated? Don't worry, you're clean. I had my assistant run a basic background check before I proposed this arrangement. You had me investigated before you even asked me? I was torn between being impressed and disturbed. She shrugged. I'm a Harrington. Trust but verify. Before I could process this, she was introducing me to her colleagues from the foundation, intelligent, passionate people who seemed genuinely dedicated to the organization's work funding educational initiatives in underserved communities. Here, Eliza transformed. Gone was the polished socialite performing for her father's crowd, in her place was a knowledgeable, engaged leader who clearly cared deeply about making a difference. Eliza spearheaded our new tech education program, explained Marcus, the foundation's director. She convinced the board to triple the funding for coding classes in schools that couldn't afford computer labs. The digital divide is just another form of inequality, Eliza said, with none of the artifice I'd seen earlier. Every child deserves the opportunity to develop skills for the future, regardless of their zip code. I found myself genuinely impressed. That's amazing work. She looked almost embarrassed by the praise. It's just a start. We have so much more to do. As the evening progressed, I began to see the complexities of Eliza's world more clearly. She moved between different versions of herself with practiced ease, the dutiful daughter, the foundation executive, the social butterfly, but I wondered which one was real, or if any of them were. The second complication of the night arrived in the form of a tall, impeccably dressed man who approached us as we stood near the bar. "Eliza Harrington," he said with a confident smile. "Your father said you might be difficult to find tonight, but I'd recognize you anywhere." Eliza's grip on my arm tightened. "Michael Tan," she said, her social smile firmly in place. "What a surprise." "Not really," he replied smoothly. "Our fathers have been trying to arrange this meeting for months." He turned to me with a questioning look. "This is Noah," Eliza said. "My boyfriend." Michael's smile dimmed only slightly. "Boyfriend? Your father didn't mention that." "It must have slipped his mind," she said sweetly. "Noah, Michael's family runs one of the largest tech investment firms in Singapore." "Impressive," I said, shaking his hand. "And what do you do?" Michael asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer wouldn't measure up. "Noah is a graphic designer," Eliza answered before I could. "He's incredibly talented. In fact, he's helping redesign some of our foundation materials." This was news to me, but I nodded as if it had been discussed. "How creative," Michael said, in much the same tone Eliza's father had used. "Well, I won't interrupt your evening. Perhaps another time, Eliza." As he walked away, Eliza let out a small sigh of relief. "Thank you. That's exactly why I needed you here." He seemed persistent. "They always are. It's never about me, it's about the Harrington name, the connections, the money." There was a weariness in her voice that seemed at odds with her youth and privilege. "Must be hard to know if people like you for yourself," I said, surprising myself with the observation. She looked at me sharply. "That's exactly it. Everyone wants something from me, or rather, from my father through me." "What do you want?" I asked. The question seemed to catch her off guard. "What do you mean?" "For yourself. Not what your father wants, or what the foundation needs, or what society expects. What does Eliza want?" She was silent for a long moment. "No one's asked me that in a very long time." Before she could answer, the music changed, and couples began moving to the dance floor. "I believe I promised my mother you'd dance with me," Eliza said, clearly ready to change the subject. "I should warn you, I'm not much of a dancer." She smiled, a genuine one this time. "Just follow my lead. I've had lessons since I was 4. And so I found myself dancing with Eliza Harrington, trying not to step on her undoubtedly expensive shoes while being acutely aware that her father was watching us from across the room. "He's still not convinced," Eliza murmured, nodding subtly toward James. "We need to be more convincing." "More convincing how?" I asked, suddenly nervous. "Like this," she said, and before I could react, she leaned in and kissed me. It was meant to be performative, I knew that. A show for her father, for Michael Tan, for anyone else watching. But something unexpected happened in that moment, a spark, a connection, a sudden awareness that this woman in my arms was more than just the billionaire's daughter playing a game. When she pulled back, there was confusion in her eyes too, as if she'd felt the same surprising connection. "That should do it," she said, her voice not quite steady. The third complication of the night came after dinner, when Eliza excused herself to speak with some foundation donors and I found myself alone at our table, nursing a glass of wine that probably